It's 1:30 p.m. in Lagos, 12:30 p.m. in London, and in Accra, Ghana. We're bringing you markets, analysis, and insights right here on Business Incorporated from Lagos. And here's what's coming up on the program. South Africa's inflation hits 5 months high before rates decision. Zambia hikes key rates by highest level in 4 years to curb inflation. And GCC projects market breaks all-time spending record. Oh, welcome to the program. I'm Will Ibang. Let's kick off with the markets. First up, major equities in Africa, where we see at intraday, it was mostly positive sentiments. Nigeria's NGX was up 0.02%. We see South Africa also doing well, 0.77%. In Egypt, the EGX 30 traded higher, climbed more than 1% at intraday. And we see Kenya closing yesterday's session in the green, reversing the negative trend. Now let's dig into the NGX and see what's pushing stocks at intraday, if it's still in positive territory. Jennifer Onyeka, research analyst, Parthian Securities Limited, joins us to share this insight. Good afternoon, Jennifer. It's good to have you on the show.
Good afternoon. Good to be here.
Jennifer, tell us now, the NGX was marginally up at intraday, 0.02%. I don't know if it's flipped to the negative territory at the moment. Can you tell us what stocks investors are eyeing?
Okay, so yes, as of 12, it was at 0.01%, but then, like you said, a few minutes after 12, we saw the market being pulled into negative territory because we're seeing transactions in MTN, and that has dropped the share price from 239 to about 238, and then in terms of value, that's MTN is top in the chart, followed by GTCO, as well as GTCO is about a 985 million naira value traded, and then we're also seeing movement in Zambia. But then in terms of active stocks, I think we're seeing Veritas Capital doing about 55 million in terms of volume. And then we're also seeing Unity Bank following closely. It's also interesting that Unity Bank is on this table because I think they came into the news, or they came into the market immediately. We got information about a possible discussion going on between Unity Bank and Providus Bank. So that has spurred investors' interest. And then it's like people are strategizing and positioning for a possible buyout or what's going to follow. So we don't have much information on that yet, and we're looking to see what will follow.
Interesting movements in the market at intraday, but let's check out the oil and gas sector. For 2 days in a row now, it's closed unchanged. Can you tell us if there's any movement in that sector, that counter?
Currently, there's been a bit of a slow movement. We could attribute that to maybe the year winding down, or investors waiting to see what the outcome of maybe the NTB auction going on today. But then we're hoping to see if this year will be different and if there's a possible Santa Claus rally that will happen this year. So that's how the oil and gas sector has been going. But who knows, the market could swing into a positive market, and we'll see the indices close positive by the end of today.
We'll definitely wait to see that. But just give us a quick outlook. Do you think the market is going to close in the red or in the green?
Currently, I think it's in the red. So if we're still seeing movement in MTN the way it's going, there's a possible outcome. It might be negative, but then let's just keep our fingers crossed, and then we'll probably see a mix to positive sentiment at the end of the day. It's been interesting so far, yeah. Yesterday it was about 46 to 8 gainers, 46 gainers to 8 losers. So the NGX has been doing great recently, and we'll see what today brings.
Yeah, definitely there's been positive sentiments in the market, and we hope it spills over and we get that Santa rally we so desperately need to keep the market up at the end of the year. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer Onyeka, Research Analyst, Party and Securities, for joining us on Business Incorporated.
Thank you very much.
Now let's go over to the Middle East, where it's negative sentiments at intraday. We see Abu Dhabi trading down 0.25%. We also see Dubai also down slightly, though, by 0.07%. Elsewhere, still within the region, Saudi and the Qatari indexes were also in the red. Wonder what's happening in that region. Now we're moving on, still within the Middle East. We see the GCC projects market has broken the record for the value of contracts awarded in a single calendar year. As of the 21st of November, that's yesterday, 1,268 contracts totaling $178.6 billion had been awarded in the region, according to Regional Projects Tracker Meet Projects. Now, the total so far this year beats the previous full-year record of $173.5 billion set in 2014. Now, on a record country level, both Saudi Arabia and the UAE have also broken their all-time highs for contract awards. Year to date, contract awards in the kingdom, that's the Saudi Arabia kingdom, has reached $82.5 billion, far in excess of the previous record of $58.3 billion made last year. Now, other major capital expenditure contributors this year include the $23 billion worth of contracts led by Saudi Aramco, $15.3 billion of power sector deals, and $14.3 billion of transport projects. Now, the 6th edition of the African Agri-Investment Endeavor is ongoing in Cape Town, South Africa, which has brought together high-level stakeholders in food and agriculture, and the focus is Africa's food security. A UN report shows over 258 million people in 58 countries and territories around the world will experience a level of acute food insecurity, with Nigeria alone projected to have 25 million at high risk in 2023. Now, Mr. Ade Adefeko, Policy Advisor, Agriculture, Trade and Development Finance, and Chairman, Publicity Group, Nasima, joins us from Cape Town, South Africa. Good afternoon, Mr. Adefeko. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much, Will. Thank you for having me.
Now, Mr. Adefeko, you're right there at the meeting. Can you tell us the importance of this meeting and how beneficial it is for Africa?
Thank you very much. This is the Africa Agri-Endeavor, Investment Agri-Endeavor here in Cape Town. So this brings a collective of different agricultural agencies, companies, and individuals, or what you can call stakeholders, to sit down and agree on the way forward to achieving food security. But this time around, talking about it from different narratives. So that's the theme of the conference for this year, is achieving food security, a different narrative. So everybody brings to bear what their side in the agricultural value chain, particularly in their respective countries, are doing. So there's a lot of deal making, there's a lot of conversation, there's what you call a handshake. Okay. It's important for you to note that in Africa, we don't do enough amongst ourselves, trade-wise, probably about 3% thereabout. But now we're talking about the fact that we should do more trade with ourselves, and we should, to a large extent, collaborate, cooperate, and make sure that we're very strategic, we're very deliberate, and we're very intentional. So in the last 3 days, that's what we've been doing here. So, and I think it's been positive so far, and it can only get better.
In recent times, we've seen the food system production in Africa has been, widely impacted by the shocks, geopolitical tensions here and there in Russia and Ukraine. We see in the Israel Hamas, we're having to always be at the receiving end of these conflicts. How can Africa strengthen their food production system to be able to export food, become an exporter and not importer of foods? Are there any urgent policy shifts that the governments in Africa need to do or make to be able to ensure that this happens?
I think first things first, we need to have government to be intentional. Government, of course, is about public good. We need to a large extent, make sure that we subsidize production rather than consumption. Africa particularly has comparative advantage in many areas, particularly in many food crops. Talking about maize, talking about cassava, talking about soya. and the likes, cocoa, cashew, sesame. So all these are important, but we've had challenges. Our challenges basically is that we don't have a handshake, and the entire value chain, there's no nexus. So that needs to be achieved. A lot of private sector players are doing their bit to make sure that we achieve food security. And of course, an hungry continent, a hungry continent is an hungry continent. I think we're not doing badly. We can do much better. Budget provision for agriculture needs to be increased. Right now, a lot of countries are not doing very well in terms of budgetary allocation for agriculture. But again, in talking about agriculture by governments, they just must make sure that they provide an enabling environment for the private sector to thrive. So I'm one of those who believe that you can only be competitive when you have competitive advantage. We have competitive advantage in many areas, and I think we just need to put our money where our mouth is. So those are the conversations we need to have. And I think we need to do more amongst each other, particularly as a continent.
Okay, you are the agri-investment this year. What agreements, you're right there, what agreements or consensus have been reached so far? What deals are in the offing at the moment? Is there any general sentiment you'd like to share with us?
Well, the general sentiment and mood here is that we need to do more. We need to be more deliberate. We need to be more intentional. We need to be more strategic. And we need to have these conversations by walking the talk. There's a lot of conversation year in, year out where we never do anything apart from talk, and we should stop making these talk shops. So the rubber must beat the road somewhere. And that's where I think we're lacking. But I think as a continent, we need to be more deliberate and more intentional. So I think that's a consensus amongst everyone here. Collaboration, cooperation, very, very important.
Thank you so much, Mr. Defeko, Policy Advisor, Agriculture, Trade and Development Finance. Thank you so much for joining us on Business Incorporated.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Now, still on food security, the federal government says it will employ technological solutions, and that's in Nigeria, innovation acceptable to society to reduce the risk of food insecurity in the country. The Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology, Mr. Uche Naji, who made the disclosure during the official commissioning of the Nigerian Council of Food Science and Technology Data Management Center, said to achieve this, collaborative efforts across board will play a significant role. The registrar of the commission, Mrs. Nkechi Eze, on her part says they are determined to ensure efficient professional management of the various segments of the Nigerian food value chains and supply systems.
To know that reducing the risk of food insecurity today and in the future will require technological solutions and innovations acceptable to society through collaborative efforts across agriculture, food science and technology, nutrition and health programs. Innovation, science and technology will play a significant role in promoting wealth creation through food production.
The Data Management Center being commissioned today will serve as a center for storing, organizing, and maintaining the data created and collated by NICFOS in the course of carrying out its activities in line with the provisions of the Establishment Act. We are determined to live up to our vision, which is efficient professional management of the various segments of the Nigerian food value chains and supply systems, following current best practices for food safety. We have the mission of developing and promoting the highest standards in the training and practice of food science and technology profession in Nigeria.
Next, Zambia's central bank hikes key interest rates. That story and more still on Business Incorporated. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Now, $1.68 billion belonging to foreign airlines is trapped in Africa as at September this year. Now, the countries holding on to these funds include Ghana, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Angola, and Zimbabwe, with Nigeria being the biggest debtor globally to the tune of $850 million. This was made known at the just concluded 55th Annual General Meeting of the African Airlines Association in Entebbe, Uganda. How do these African countries navigate this problem amid high inflation and limited FX supply? Mohamed Abdullahi, business travel consultant, joins us. Good afternoon, Mr. Abdullahi. I can see that IATA's regional vice president of Africa and Middle East, Camille Al-Awadi, was quite vocal and passionate at the meeting with regards to the blocked funds. Can you share some of his concerns and how this has impacted on airline operations?
Yeah, thank you. It's nice to be here. It's quite a big challenge for us as a country because, like you rightly mentioned, we've had more than 850 million USD, blocked in Nigeria for the past 2 years, owed to several airlines, both locally and then, most importantly, internationally. And answering your questions, particularly, if you recall, more than a year now, Emirates Airline, apologies that I have to mention brands, but Emirates Airline have not flown Nigeria, and it's said to be a major issue because of the block funds. So Hamid Al-Wadi, like rightly mentioned, was very vocal 2 days ago at the just concluded AFRA 55th Annual General Assembly here in Kampala in Uganda. He was very vocal because he shared the concern that this is really affecting airlines operations. They need these funds to keep operating, to service the airplanes and so on and so forth. And this is definitely affecting our continent and particularly Nigeria as the highest debtor negatively, because perhaps in no distant time, other international airlines might be forced out of the country. Because yes, when you remember that this service have been paid for, so it is quite challenging that they can't repatriate their money out of the country, having offered the service and so on and so forth. So a continuous delay of this is sure to continue to affect the country negatively, particularly with regards to air travel. And mind you, you understand that Nigerians love traveling. And if you allow me to go for that, this is a reason why, in fact, this issue of block funds, another negative effect is the fact that we have skyrocketed charges in terms of ticket pricing, because the airlines are actually looking for ways, to get their money back. And in so doing, if you compare what we fly perhaps from Lagos to UK and then Accra to UK, for instance, you see a big time significant difference between what is obtainable in Lagos and Abuja compared to what you get in Accra or even Benin Republic, just a few kilometers from Nigeria. So this is quite a big problem. What I think is the way forward is for this new government, even though they didn't create the problem, we must be very factual, but this new government must prioritize aviation. They must understand that traveling is quite important, not just for leisure. Most people and many people do this because of business and so on and so forth. So it's very important that we prioritize aviation and then try to put a plan that we need to, sort out this lingering problem. Okay,
Mr. Abdullah, you said the airlines are looking for ways to get their money back, but you just mentioned that the government should do something, to prioritize aviation, but are there any details on collaborations between IATA and the governments of Nigeria and other countries to address the trapped funds and other related charges?
Yes, Camille, in his submission 2 days ago, mentioned specifically that he's flown to Nigeria severally. He's met the current Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development. He's met top hierarchies, in government and in private sector. And yeah, there's just what's happening is the fact that there's been a lot of promises, but then there are challenges, there are fears, because like I said earlier, this is lingering for more than 2 years. And mind you, perhaps this is a new government, 6 months old. There are myriads of challenges that they are facing altogether. But like I said earlier, they also need to prioritize the aviation sector, because in so doing, you keep so many people on their jobs, not only the foreign airlines. There are a lot of the domestic airlines actually need this USD to go service their planes, to go do the MRIs abroad. So it's very important that the government looked at the issue of aviation sector. Try to put up a plan, perhaps a one-year plan to say perhaps every quarter will allow this foreign airlines repatriate such and such amount of money, so that that there is a plan in place and not just allow for a blanket decision making. So I think this is the way forward for all, so that we don't just allow everything collapse unexpectedly.
And the strategic planning for payments will be very beneficial. But do you see any significant improvement? You talked about the state of the aviation sector. What about the infrastructure in Africa? Do you see any improvements in the aviation sector anytime soon, in the near future, medium term, or in the future? What do you project for the aviation sector in Africa?
It looks a bit good, but the numbers are quite still very low at the moment. At the moment, the passenger data for Africa is saying we're just doing 2.1%, and there are a lot of challenges. I mean, there are a lot of reasons why that is so low, despite the fact that we love to travel. But within Africa ourselves, there is a lot of restrictions. For instance, from Nigeria to get to North Africa, I need a visa, which is not forthcoming, and so on and so forth. So these are the things that the government, particularly African Union, need to put in place. I know there is a single African air traffic transport market that is in place since 2018. 37 countries have signed to that, but not just signing; they are not implementing it. And it's so ironical that the system is in place since 2018. But the AU itself is not looking at the issue of actually opening the borders, because in Europe, for instance, you can sleep in London this minute, you have your breakfast in Paris, and so on and so forth. But in Africa, it's quite challenging. It's not so. So I think these are the things. Even though the future looks a bit good, but we need to look at this holistically and remove the barriers within Africa, so that we can improve trade, we can improve travel within our continent, and we'll be doing good numbers to market the continent.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mohamed Abdullahi, business travel consultant, for sharing your insights on Business Incorporated.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Now we move on to South Africa, where inflation has quickened to a 5-month high in October, a reading analysts say will unlikely persuade the central bank to hike rates. Now the consumer price index rose 5.9% compared with 5.4% in September, and this exceeding economists' expectations. Now in addition, core inflation, which excludes food and energy costs, slowed to 4.4% from 4.5% in September. The biggest contributors to the uptick in inflation were food and non-alcoholic beverages and transport costs, which jumped 8.7% and 7.4%. Now, the increase in the food index was driven by higher prices for poultry-related products, including eggs, which have come under increased upward pressure due to the outbreak of avian flu. Now, Zambia's central bank has raised its benchmark interest rates by the most in 4 years to tame stubborn inflation and support the currency. The Monetary Policy Committee lifted the rate to 11% from 10%, and that's the biggest increase since November 2019. This week, Zambia's dollar debt plunged after official creditors, co-led by China and France, rejected a revised bondholder restructuring proposal, stalling the revamp of $3 billion of outstanding notes. And that's a wrap on Business Incorporated for today. I am Will Ibong. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.